Hello students, today's lesson will be about malnutrition. Please locate your malnutrition notes handout sheet that should be in your red folder with your week 2 materials. The state standard we will be covering for today's lesson is State Standard 22 for Nutrition Science and Diet Therapy, which states, to compare issues related to hunger and malnutrition, food insecurity, and food insufficiency locally, nationally, and globally. We're also going to describe the short-term effects and sustainable development relief efforts used to combat these problems. Our lesson objectives for today are going to be to distinguish between hunger and food insecurity, to define malnutrition, to identify the two types of malnutrition. We are going to identify various terms associated with undernutrition, and we're also going to identify various terms associated with overnutrition. When we are discussing malnutrition, the most important definition we need to be aware of is hunger. Hunger is a feeling of discomfort or weakness caused by a lack of food coupled with a desire to eat. Please look at the graphic on your screen. This graphic shows us a visual of if hunger were a country. Now, two of the largest populated places in the world are China and India. At any point in time, almost 1 billion people on our planet suffer from chronic undernourishment. That's 1 in every 8 persons alive today. If we were to take the world's hungry, those 1 in 8, and put people in one location, that would mean it would be the 3rd largest populated country in the world behind India and China. That is 3 times the population of the United States alone. Hunger globally is a major problem. When we think of people going hungry, we most likely picture people in other countries. However, hunger in the United States is very real. Let's look at some child hunger statistics for the United States. 13 million kids in the U.S. struggle with hunger, and 1 in 6 live with hunger. So if we are sitting in a class, statistically speaking, 1 out of every 6 person in the classroom lives with hunger. Over half of public school students in America are from low-income families, which means they live under the poverty line, which is usually defined at around a household income lower than $42,000 a year. 22 million kids rely on free and reduced school lunch prices, and 3 out of 4 public school teachers say students regularly come to school hungry. Let's look at the hunger map that was created in 2018. You will notice you will see many different colors. The hunger map, if you look at the bottom, shows that the countries that are in blue tend to have very low prevalence of undernourishment in the total population. And you notice as the colors get darker, they represent, you go from yellow, orange, red to deep red. You will notice that the countries that appear in deep red are going to be countries that have a very high prevalence of undernourished people. You will notice specifically that most of these countries are on the continent of Africa, such as Chad, Madagascar, and Zambia. You also have in red Sudan, Iraq, and Afghanistan. So these countries tend to face more of a prevalence of undernourishment in their total population, but hunger can exist everywhere. Okay, 821 million people do not get enough to eat. 150 million children under 5 are too small for their age due to insufficient diets. And 1 in 3 women of childbearing age suffers from anemia. Climate variables and extremes are also key drivers among hunger. Drought, war, all of these things can affect food availability and hunger. Now that we have defined hunger and learned some important statistics, now we're going to investigate food insecurity, which is far more common in the United States than most people realize. Food insecurity is defined as the state of being without reliable access to enough affordable, nutritious food. Notice that that says nutritious food, not junk food. Let's look at a graphic on the prevalence of food insecurity between 2016 and 2018. You will notice that shaded in light purple, you will see states that have a below the U.S. average of food insecurity. This means that they have less than the average people who qualify as being food insecure. Then you have in white where it is food insecurity is near the U.S. average. Tennessee meets the near average of food insecurity. Then you have the states that appear in blue. These states have a food insecurity average that is well above the rest of the United States. Malnutrition is also known as poor nutrition. Malnutrition can be caused by overnutrition or undernutrition. Overnutrition is when there is excess, meaning too much energy or nutrient intake. Undernutrition is when a person is deficient or does not get enough energy or nutrient intake. Overnutrition is a larger problem in the United States than undernutrition. This is due to overeating. It is also due to the ingestion of an excess of various vitamins and minerals via supplements. According to this map, it gives a projected prevalence of overweight women ages 30 and above based on if their BMI was greater than or equal to 25 kilograms. You will notice that the United States is featured in red, which states that of women ages 30 and above, 75% of those women have a BMI that would categorize them as being overweight. Obesity is an excessive amount of body fat for an individual's height and weight. Undernutrition occurs when a person is deficient or does not get enough energy or nutrient intake. Undernutrition is the outcome of undernourishment and or poor absorption and or poor biological use of nutrients consumed as a result of repeated infectious disease. It includes being underweight for one's age, too short for one's age, dangerously thin for one's height, and deficient in vitamins and minerals. One term associated with undernutrition is the term underweight. Underweight is when your weight is lower than what is considered healthy for your age. Wasting occurs when the weight is too low for height as a result of undernutrition. It reflects a loss of muscle tissue and fat. Wasting is when a person is thinner than normal for their height because of malnutrition. Stunting is caused by chronic undernutrition during the most critical periods of growth and development in early life. This results in a person being much shorter than normal for their age and their height. Kwashiorkor is caused from an adequate calorie intake, but they lack protein or have a recent lack of protein containing foods, meaning that their body is no longer receiving the protein that it needs, and this can sometimes happen during a famine. It is characterized by this belly that looks like it is fluid filled and is characterized by edema, which is swelling, and an enlarged liver. Starvation is a severe deficiency in caloric energy intake, below the level needed to maintain a life. It is the most extreme form of malnutrition. Marasmus is defined as a person who is severely wasted with no fat and very little muscle tissue left. They have a very weak heart and low blood flow. They have no reserves to fight infection. This is the most common cause of death during famine. And when they have marasmus and then they get an infectious disease such as malaria, that will then cause death. Now that we have investigated and defined terms associated with malnutrition, the rest of this week we are going to be investigating hunger and the problems that we face here in the United States and abroad about food and what we can do about it.